Now, in recent months, New York City has had dozens of students at Columbia University being arrested for protesting. And so, if you're wondering why so many students are being arrested and why some are even being suspended from the university, well, the answer has to do with how New York City has been combating anti Semitism and how the city is trying to balance the freedom of speech and activism with also accountability and law and order. And of course, this kind of action is going to garner a lot of controversy. Anytime that police officers are called onto a college campus and arresting dozens of students, that is always going to cause a lot of outcry. Now, the reason why they arrested these protesters was supposedly because they were going out of line. Yes, apparently the most recent controversy has to do with some students that decided to storm Columbia's library. And so you see, New York City has been the center of a lot of controversy lately, specifically Columbia University. You see, the school campus has had a lot of protests recently, and so many students have come forward arguing and protesting their sides. And sometimes the protests have gotten out of hand from both sides, and the police have needed to be called on to arrest and also to keep people safe. And so all this is really highlighting just how much New York City is a battleground for freedom of speech, but also for how the police deal with freedom of speech. Now, this recent protest that has gotten over 80 students arrested has to do with pro-Palestine protesters who barged into one of Columbia's libraries. You see, news articles are reporting that there's video footage and university reports confirming that these demonstrators forced open doors, they occupied a reading room, and they even defaced library property with spray paint and with slogans. Some were even chanting anti-Israel messages, which we've talked about before, things like "to the river, to the sea," which can, yes, be interpreted from both ways. But there are people who have used that chant in a hateful way before. And it's a very hard way for us to determine how these people are using it right now. And so if they were saying things that might have been interpreted as anti-Israel, well, then that is not looking good for their side. And that might have been what contributed to their arrest. Now, what's interesting about this situation and a lot of situations like these protests going on in a lot of universities is that the government's showing a little bit more of a catering to Israeli students and Israeli institutions. You know, the government is cracking really hard on anti-Semitism, but I'm really wondering, is there any Islamophobia to be found? Now, what we're hearing a lot of is that these pro-Palestine protesters are out of hand, that they're defacing property, that they're saying anti-Israel chants, and yes, I'm willing to accept that all that can be true. But what I'm also wondering is if our government is also willing to crack down on Israeli students that are saying really Islamophobic things